Hi all, welcome to this module on input output using Python. Prior to this, we have already covered the TOC as well as we also covered the basic part of the programming. Right? Let's understand how you can go ahead and do the input output operations, and this is quite common, right? So let's see what we'll cover up in this particular module. I'll demonstrate you about the input operations and how do you work with that. And second one, we'll also understand the implementation of the output operations that can be done in Python. This is a quote from Industrial Light and Magic. If many of you heard about this enterprise, it is basically do all kind of animated movie in Hollywood, right? And primarily or extensively they use Python for their animation. So if you go and search for Industrial Light and Magic, you will find out almost 90% of the Hollywood movies which are animated are actually created or produced by Industrial Light and Magic. So you can understand how extensively Python is used in animations or games or in videos. So let's begin with Python IO, right? You get into any kind of a programming language, the first thing that we learn is how do you go and display something to the user on the screen, and second one is we also understand how do you take input from the user, right? There are multiple ways in which you can do it in other programming languages. So we will talk about a function called input function, which is a pre-built functions in Python, which allows us to take input at runtime from the user, right? The second one we will also discuss is called as a print method, which is equivalent to your printf in C or system.out.println in Java. This is basically to go and display back to the user, right? There is another method is available called raw underscore input, but please remember this was outdated. If any project which is running in Python version 2.8 or lesser than that, yes, raw underscore input used to work, but later on this raw underscore input is removed. So what we have as of now is two methods. One is input method to take input from the user, right? That is what is this. And second one is the print method to go back and display back to the user. Right, so generally what happens as a user, we provide certain input by using the keyboard, and that is where the input method comes into picture. That particular code get processed, and after the processing is done, if I supposed to go back and display back to the user, I'll use the print method which goes back and display back to the user on the screen or in the video. Let's talk about input function. So first focus on input and then we'll go back to the print method. So the input function's main priority is to take input from the user, and that too at runtime, right? While the program is running, user can provide the input at runtime. So that's what I said. It's actually given a provision for accepting the data while the code is running, right? It's like providing online input, right? You would understand when you do programming, there are two kind of programming, right? We talk about something called as a batch processing, and one is an online, right? Batch processing is those particular program where input is given before the program starts, right? Typical examples in anybody heard about mainframe COBOL, right? That's a batch programming. In that particular case, what happened? We used to provide inputs before the program starts, right? By writing a script which you call it a JCL. But other than any other programming language that you have learned in your college days, C, C++, Java, it allows us to provide input at runtime. That is exactly what input method does. This is interactive, right? So one of the best thing that happens when you provide input at runtime is that you are not going to hard code the values, right? And that brings in dynamism to your code, right? So at a runtime when you provide the values, you're not going to hard code the values. You ask user to provide the data as and when the program runs. Now when you're going to enter the data, how long it is going to take, wait, before it takes the data and put it to a variable, unless until you don't press an enter key. So it will wait for the user input to be provided by using standard input device. Generally it is a keyboard till you press an enter key. Let's take some example. So here the first line says name is equal to input interior message. This interior message is nothing but a prompt which I'm going to display to the user, and next to that it will allow me to enter the data. Now whatever the data I enter from the keyboard, that is actually going to be get stored in a variable called name. So enter your name is basically a prompt, And whatever the data you enter after this from your keyboard, that goes to the variable name, and I can go ahead and display that name back to the user. Anyway, we will discuss about this print method later, but print method, as I said, it is basically to display the outcome back to the user. Second example is here, I am taking two input from the user, right? You can see I'm taking the name from the user, I'm taking the age from the user. Please remember, this prompt could be anything. You can write on anything here, right? Whatever the value that you enter after this is goes and gets stored in a variable called name, and it goes and stored in a variable called x. Now question is, what is this example 2 and how it is different from example 1? If you remember, in my previous module, I talked about a method called type. It is basically returns me the type of variable it is, the data type of the variable it is. So your guess as of now is, because I'm entering a name which is considered to be a string type, the name will become a string type. And when I ask somebody to enter the age, he enters a number. So I consider this age to be a number type or an integer type. We will see in the code, right, how it happens. But as of now, you please remember, when you enter the data by using an input method, right, anything that you enter is considered to be a string type. It means your name is going to be a string variable and age is also going to be a string variable. So while entering my age, if I enter, let's say 23, right, that 23, even if it is going to stored as in the age, but it is actually going to store 23 as a string type, and that is the reason why your age will become a string type, right? We will see the demo at that, don't worry. Coming back to the print function, and I mean any functions that we learn, we actually see the syntax of it. So let us talk about a syntax. Looks to be very complicated, don't worry. So I'm saying print, it is an object. We can provide a separator, we can provide a keyword called end, we can also provide a file. We are not discussing that. Once I cover the file, I'll come back to this. And flush is equal to false. I think those who have done C or C++, you would have heard about the keyword called flush. It is nothing but clearing the memory space, right? Something similar to that. So as we progress, I'll explain you what is a SCP stand for and what is an end stand for. Don't worry. Now here I have got two variable, right? One is name and one is age, wherein in the name I have stored Sajad, and in age I have stored 25. Now here I'm trying to display, it's saying hello, my name is, then I provided a comma, then I provided the first value to be displayed here, right? And then I have said and I am, then I have provided the second variable placement holder here, and then I say year old. So you can go ahead and display like this, right? So I have got two variable. This is the simplistic print statement that you have, which is going to go and display the value back to the user. If you remember in system.out.println, or it could be like in a printf, we can actually go and display two variables at one go, right? Same thing you are doing it in Python as well. Let's take an example too. Remember this keyword called SCP? SCP actually stands for a separator. Here I wanted to print in the first example to first line, I wanted to print Python, programming and tutorial. So he's saying, boss, you are printing three strings. And here I said, you know what, they all to be separated by a space. So that means it is going to display me Python space programming space tutorial. I wanted to print 2304-2006. Consider this is the this is what is representing a date, and I want the date separator has to be in hyphen. So between 23 and 04 there will be a hyphen. Between 04 and 2016 there will be a hyphen. Let us say this is my email ID. This is the domain name, gmail.com. Right? I wanted to display ram@gmail.com. So between ram and gmail.com, the separator has to be an @ right? So you can actually, it is going to display me ram@gmail.com. So that is what an exact meaning of saying SCP, or a separator. Let's talk about output formatting. Now, when you have variable, you manipulate the variable. Now the time comes in, go and display them. Now there are multiple ways you can actually go and display them, right? We will see four of them. Just take a look at that. We'll understand something called string modulo, which is called percentile operator, a format method, a string method, and a format conversion rule. Those who are coming from C or C++, I hope all of you would be okay with called percentile D, percentile B, percentile O, percentile U, percentile C. If you remember, percentile C represents a character. Percentile I or D represents a digit or an integer. Percentile O represents an octal. X represents an hexadecimal. E represents an exponential, and F represents a float. So those were coming from C. You would understand. We write on a printf percentile D comma X, printf percentile S comma name. Right? We are okay with that keywords. Right? Those things can be used here. You know what, when you look at a Python code, sometimes Python code would look like a C code, sometimes it will look like a C++ code, sometimes it look like a Java code. So that's why I said anyone who knows any one of this programming language, right, Python for them is quite easy, right? So let's go and understand each one of them now. So first, talking about a string modulo or percentile operator. So basically this tells us that how can I use percentile to go back and display value back to the user. Now, again, correlates to C programming. I hope all of you have heard about or tried something called percentile 2D, percentile 5.2F. Any guesses? What is the meaning of that? Let me change the color of the pen. Yeah. What do you mean by saying percentile 2D? What do you mean by saying percentile 5.2F? Right? Okay. Understand, D means you're talking about a digit and F means you're representing a float. Now, percentile 2D and percentile 5.2 is nothing but how much of space that I'm providing to display the value, right? So here, I just take a look at the outcome, you would understand. Here I'm trying to display 33. Now I'm providing a space of 2. It's okay, it will display me age is 33. But look at salary. I wanted to display 1000.5542. I said no, that is not working for me. I'll give you five placeholder before fraction, and after fraction I'll give you two placeholder. So can you see here it is showing me 1000, and because in the decimal I've just provided a two space, right? It displays me only 55. 40 to 42 is not coming out from there, right? So this code, if you see, this code is ditto same how you do it in a C programming. Only the difference is you have a print method. Just write on printf. The code would work in C or C++, right? So that's a beauty of Python. That is about a string module using a percentile operator. Use a format operator. Now it is a format operator basically is a placeholder, and you provide the placeholder by using curly braces. I hope you can see that here. You can see it here, right? So I have got two placeholder. The first placeholder that you see it here would be replaced by the first variable called basic, and second placeholder will be replaced by the value called HRA. So here I have defined two variable, basic and HRA. I also calculated the total by multiplying basic into HRA. So here I'm saying the value of basic is now this first placeholder, the first set of curly braces will take the first variable and put it here, right? And HRA is the second variable goes and get replaced here, right? In the if you look at the difference between the first print statement and the second print statement, you can see in the second print statement I'm using something called as 2, 0 and 1. That is nothing but the position of the variable. That means this particular 2 means in my list the third variable will come up here. So that means total will come and represent here, right? And second one I'm going to bring in basic here, and I'm going to bring in HRA here. So it is not necessary the way you write this variable name, the same order has to be maintained. No, it could be a different order as well, right? So if you take a look at the outcome, like take a look at the second line outcome. It's saying 36, sorry, 3,60,000 is the addition of, sorry, it's a my mistake, it's a multiplication. Addition of 3,000 and 1,200 is actually multiplication of 3,000 and 1,200, right? So that is what is a format method. These are the two. What are the other two? You have something called as a string method that I have showed you in the previous example. And then there is something called conversion rule. Conversion rule, I just explained you that in my previous example as well, right? So what we covered in this particular module? In this particular module, we looked at how the input operations do happens in Python, and also we looked at how the output operations can be done in Python. Now, let me just give you a demo for it. Okay, let's take your time. Just have a look at it. I hope you are all able to see my browser. So again, I'll share this, Jupyter Notebook code. Take a look at this. I'm accepting my name. As I said, the input method is there. I'll accept my name. I said your name is Ram. Now here I'm displaying by using a comma. This is using a modulus operator. This is a placeholder percentile s. Percentile s represents a string. So the outcome of the first one and second one is going to be the same one. Only the difference is here I used a percentile s, which is a formatter that we generally use it in C or C++. The next example is, if you remember that was there in the slide, I'm accepting my name and I'm also accepting my age. But if you look at the data type, right, type of name and type of age both shows me a string. Please remember, I told you this, that by using input method, whatever you accept, it is actually going to be get converted to a string type. Right now, the question comes in: how about I'm accepting my age, but I want it has to be written as an integer? So there are two ways to do it: either by using an typecasting that we covered in our previous module, or you can also use something called eval. Now, what happens when I use an eval? The value that you enter return his status, right? I'll enter 23. You can see here. I just entered 23. So when I say eval of input method, that means the type of age will remain as it is the way I have entered the value. If I enter 23, remains to be an integer type. If I run it again, let's take a look at this. And I enter, let's say 23.5 or 6. Can you see it changed to float now? So if you want to retain the data type, then you use eval over and above the input method, right? So you've got one method only to accept the data from the user input. But if you want the data to be entered as a string type, then just input method will do. But if you want to retain the data type over and above the input method, you use a eval method, right? So that is okay. This example explains you how about accepting more than one value in one line, but that is generally not good idea, right? You do it in C as well. If you remember in scanf, I can actually enter more than two values in one go, right? But then you need to understand what the separator to be given between the first value and the second value. So if I enter Ram and I provide space as a 23, you can see, because I've given a space as a delimiter, the first part goes to the first variable and second part goes to the second variable, right? You can do that, but I would prefer not to use this, right? Coming back to the print method. Now in the print method, it's basically go and display, right? So if I just go ahead and display, it's saying hello, my name is Sajjad, I am 25 years old, right? Now take a look at the meaning of saying end. Remember in the slide I explained you separator SCP, but I didn't explain an end. You will only see it and then you can understand what's a end keyword explains you. So if I run this, can you see all the print statement are displayed in three separate lines? But take a look at this example. Same print statement, but your line 2 ending with an end keyword, right? Just take a look at it. It's basically displaying two lines. Now what happens? Look at the second print statement. Because it is ending with an end keyword, that means after the print statement, second print statement is over, it is not going to create a new line. Because it is not going to create a new line, this third print statement will print the same line itself. Please remember, by default, each print statement will create a new line. But if you, sometimes there is a need, right? I want two print statement to be display the result in the same line. So what you can use, the previous print statement, you can end with a keyword called end, right? You can do that. Um, okay, this is an example where a print method taking function as an argument. I hope if you're coming from a C or C++, you can understand that a function can be passed to another function as an argument. And there we use a concept called function pointers. But Python says nothing doing. Here to print method, I'm actually passing two functions. One is a power by passing 100 comma 0.5. Another function I'm also passing power saying 10 comma 2. Just take a look at this. Code will work. Can you see this? Code is working. So function as an argument passing in Python is pretty easy. You do not need to use the concept of function pointer that we have done it in C. This is an example. We saw it in slide as well using a concept called separator. You can see the outcome. Python space programming space tutorial, because I just said that this three string to be separated by a space. Here I said this three date, I mean numbers to be separated by hyphen. You can see it here. Here I want RAM and gmail.com supposed to be added by a @ sign. So this is what is called separator. This example I just covered. Okay. Now let us come back to the different way of displaying, right? I discussed about something called modulus operator, right? Percentile. Just take a look at this. I explained the same code in program, right? These are the 2 lines of code. I've actually kept it in my slide to explain. You can see it here, right? This is using format method, right? I can use format basic comma HRA and it would be in sequence. So basic will come here and HRA would come here. The second option is I can actually interchange the position. Even if I write on basic HRA and total, the first variable in my print statement is going to be the third argument. Please remember, first argument is 0, second argument is 1 and third argument is 2, right? So total will actually come up here. Let me do a change because that same mistake I did it in my program, right? I will say multiplication. That would help, right? You can see here. Then you have a string method. You can take this code and run it. Many a time we display a string either center or left justify or right justified. You can very well do that in Python. You can see here, right? This is center justified. So I'm saying I'm going to give you a space of 40. Within that, you display this set of characters, right? Then you can say, no, I want to do a left justification giving 40 and this particular value to be displayed. So you can see here, this is your left, where is that value gone? Here, right? This is left justified. When you look at this, the right justify alignment, you see it here, right? So I'll just go back and run it again. You can see that. Okay, so whatever the CSTR I have, for example, I love Python programming. I want that is to be either displayed as a right justified or a left justified, or it could be like center justified. So you can see the outcome here. This is your center justified, this is your left justified, and this is your right justified. So you can do that, right? This is another setup example. You just take it and run. I have given you multiple options. For example, less than, greater than, percentile x. Percentile x is nothing but hexadecimal number system. O stand for an octal number system, right? You understand, right? You have a binary, you have a decimal, you have got an octal, and you have got an hexadecimal, right? You can use them directly. I'll send you this particular code. You can just make it run, right? Let me show you something else. If you are able to see, what you can see on my screen now is, guys, is a Eclipse. So those who are coming from Java would be very comfortable in Eclipse, right? You can actually write down your Python code in Eclipse as well. What the code that you see in my screen is actually a Python code, and I can run it. Let me run this. I'll say, okay, enter your age. Say I say 33. Enter your name. I say Ram, and you can see the outcome coming out. Now what happens is, you have to add icon. I hope all of you can see, right? If you have an Eclipse, you just need to add, I'll just write down here, you have to add a plugin called PyDev. You just need to add this plugin called PyDev. Once you add this PyDev plugin to your Eclipse, you can actually start working with Python programming. Down the line, I will actually show less on Jupyter Notebook and more on Eclipse, because there I can actually try out a lot of program code and show you the changes immediately. So I will be showing you the demo in Eclipse. Quite often than not, I will do that. Okay, let me just go back to my PPT now. So I hope you have understood the input and output operations in Python. I'll be sharing this code which I showed you as a demo. You just go ahead and try them out. So that's it from my side, guys. Thank you all. We'll see in the next module too, in which will cover up a separate topic altogether. Thank you, guys. Bye.